are listening to the Rejoice Podcast, leading all generations of our neighbors and nations to follow Jesus.
Welcome to the Rejoice Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Buttram, alongside lead pastor of Rejoice Church, Casey Cariker, and we are so thankful that you're tuning in today for the very first episode of the Rejoice Podcast. On this episode, we are joined by Coach Allan Trimble, head football coach of the Jenks Trojans. Allan is one of the most successful high school football coaches in the history of Oklahoma high school football, which says a lot, but more importantly, he's a follower of Christ, and we're so thankful for him and his testimony. Also joining us on this episode, special guest Coach Larry Cariker, and we'll get to why him and Allan have such a special relationship. So glad you're here. Let's jump right in with Coach Trimble.
That's right. We brought Larry Slime Cariker with us today, my father. It's a privilege to have him on the podcast. Coach Trimble, thank you so much for allowing us to have a few minutes right in the middle of your busy schedule with football, and even saw all the coaches coming in and out of here. Did you guys get it figured out today? Pretty much.
Yes, we got the world back on its axis really quick. So no, there's a lot of work to do here. But yeah, it's good to be here too, especially with Larry Cariker, the original Slime, partners in Slime.
Thank you. I'm proud to be known as a Slime.
A proud member of the Slime.
Couldn't get rid of it if I wanted to.
That's right.
Well, Coach, we're hanging out in your office here, overlooking the football field, where you spent a little bit of time the last few years. And but before we jump into what people love talking about football, we want to first talk about what people like to hear even more about, which is your family. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Well, my youngest daughter, Tori, we just dropped her off over at Oklahoma State University. She's going through Rush this week, which is out there for me. So it was a tough trip, but she's in the middle of Rush at Oklahoma State. She will be a freshman there in the agricultural department. My oldest daughter, Tyler, who was born in 1996, the first year I became the head coach here, she's now a junior at Harding University in Searcy, Arkansas. She's going to be an elementary teacher. She leaves here in another week or so. My wife, Courtney, is still working hard. She helps me with equipment management and all those things that I don't want to do here at my football job. But she also has a full-time job at Southern Agriculture, and so we're still that coach and football family like we always have been.
Oh, that's great. I know they've been. It takes growing up in a coach's family. It takes probably a little bit like growing up in a ministry family. You know, it takes a special calling and a unique understanding of all that it takes to impact a community and to coach a team and to love on young people.
Well, I think you're right. I think it has to be part of your life. My dad, for 40-some years, clocked into the refinery and clocked out, kind of left his job there when he drove off. But as a minister or as a coach or in any type of service work, you don't really take that coat off when you get home. So I understand what you're saying. It's more of a mission and a calling if you do it the right way, I think.
Absolutely. Well, we've had the privilege of knowing you, Coach, for quite a while.
Yes.
My father and you had the privilege to coach together. Tell us a little bit about that. What was that like, and how did you guys meet? And you remember coaching together, and what happened?
Well, I'm getting up in years, so I hope the way I'm going to explain it's accurate. But I was looking for an assistant track coach. I was a girls' track coach at Owasso High School. And I asked Allan if, he's probably related this story before, but I asked Allan if he would be my assistant. Because the reason I asked him is because I had observed him, and the way he handled student athletes was great. He had a good rapport with them and knew how to handle them. And I didn't get an answer for some period of time, and then was having my first meeting with the girls before we started practice, and then I don't know, maybe Allan wants to interject something on that at that point. You remember?
Yeah, well, I remember that well, and I remember being a first-year, varsity football coach. I didn't know about that girls' track. I especially this guy that had asked me from Hoyt, Oklahoma, and had a little country in him. You could tell. Yeah. But actually, I wrote it in the first chapter of my book when I went over and that day when Coach Cariker was talking to the girls. Renee and Andy and Anna and
Tanya.
a bunch of them that I remember very, very well, even though that's been 30-some years ago. He told the story of David and Goliath in a new way that I'd never heard it, because he said, David stood there in front of that giant, and he could have been thinking, this guy's so big, I don't have a chance. But I really think he was there, and he looked at him and says, I think he's so big, I can't miss him. Yeah. And that really touched me. Oh, it's great. I still use it today. That story hasn't worn out, But anyway, one of the more inspirational and meaningful positions that I've ever had, because I got to witness a guy like Coach Cariker, who was in the business of coaching for the right reason. And I've always appreciated that about you.
Well, that's nice of you to say that.
Well, and I think I would want to say that that's what we hear about you all the time as well, Coach Trimble, is that you coach for the right reasons, and you continue to coach for the right reasons. You've you've watched a lot of ball over the years. 13 state titles in 20 plus years. Really, God's grace has been on your life and in so many areas, and especially not even just outside your family, but you're also your career. I saw here 224 wins, 35 losses. I think a lot of coaches can't even have dreams that it would go that well, and your coaching career, by God's grace, has been. And then did I read, I think in the first 6 years or something, state championships. And I know it probably makes you uncomfortable talking about all that. But,
well, and like you said, I think if I was going to write the script 21 years ago, I don't think I would have ever dreamed about anything like that either. It's a long way from Cleveland, Oklahoma to here, and an interesting journey, but one that's just been full of blessings and great people, great players, great parents, and it's been a wonderful journey so far.
Well, one of the things that my dad mentioned, he gave me a little insight on the way over here. He's good at giving me insight. But he mentioned, number one, you've been known as a great math teacher as well. Don't forget that. A championship math teacher, I think was his words. And number two, your first state championship actually wasn't in football.
Yeah, a lot of people don't even know that. It was in 1995 in girls track here at Jenks, something that, a big difference in being an assistant track coach and, coaching a position, and being a head track coach and trying to get it all figured out. But yeah, 1995, we had a great group of young ladies. Had only one state champion, Janet Johnson, pulled off a huge upset in the long jump and beat a girl that was ranked number one all year long. And I think we ended up winning the team championship by maybe 4 points or something like that. It was crazy. It was a very fond memory. Very fond memory.
I remember that.
Talk a little bit about the challenges of trying to balance the years of coaching and mentoring, and at the same time loving on your family and raising up girls who love Jesus and follow after His mission on earth as well. And how have you been able to do that? What's that look like? What are some wins that you think God's given you over the years?
What's a good question? Probably one we could spend a lot of time on. But I read a book quite a while back. In fact, as a youngster, I can remember one of my youth pastors explaining to me how to balance my life. And but he, if you can visualize this, he drew a big circle, and within that circle was my life. And then inside that circle, he had a bunch of little bitty circles. So it was like these little subsets of my life. And in one of the circles, it was your job, and in another circle, it was your family, and then that bigger circle that he had drawn in there, he goes, that's Jesus. And you want that circle to be bigger than any other circle. And at the time when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, that really resonated with me until I read this other book. And this other book had a circle chart in it too. But it had the big Jesus circle in the middle, like a bullseye, like a target. Mm-hmm. And so in the next layer, it was my family. It was my church life. It was my relationship with others. And that really resonated with me several years ago, and carried over, I think, into my career and my family, is that wherever you're at, you don't go home as a minister and take your minister jacket off when you get home in front of your family. You're still God's servant wherever you are, whether you're at your lunch after church, or whether you're at church, or whether you're in the hospital visiting somebody, or whether you're helping your daughter do homework. So, that's what I would say, and somehow the Lord struck that in me through a book that, you keep God in the middle of your life, whatever you're doing, and somehow it just He takes care of you on your journey. I look at so many of the great servants in the Bible. I know that they were full-time servants of God at the same time, but they were good fathers. They were good at their job and their trade. So anyway, that's kind of how Coach Trimble just always looked at it. Keep him in the middle of everything we do.
That's good. That's good. And you've had a privilege of doing that as well. I know one of the other passions that you have is serving at Park Plaza Church of Christ and being an elder there. And that takes a lot of energy and effort and time and wisdom, and I know a lot of people have really been grateful for your faithfulness, continued faithfulness in serving a local church there. And as a pastor, I can really say that I appreciate anyone who puts their leadership on the line in the local church. And I think even lately, even church planting, you've gotten to experience that as well. Open that up for us.
Wow, what an adventure. Well, when at Park Plaza Central, the original branch, there just celebrated over 50 years, and we didn't have any place to park. I mean, it's a blessing. The Lord has blessed us with. We tried 3 services for a while, and our poor minister just couldn't. It's a tough finding enough teachers. So we decided, since we didn't have any parking and enough seats, that we would try to branch out. This was before I was even considered as an elder or anything, but they approached me and said, "Hey, is there anything out in Jenks that we can do?" Because we did a little survey, and a number of our people come from out here. So anyway, I just went and asked the school if we could rent one of their new elementary buildings, and they certainly said yes. So that was going on 2 years ago, and so about 70 or 80 of us moved out here, and I'm telling you guys, it's an adventure. It's a lot easier from the outside than it is from the inside, looking at all the logistics that make it happen. But we have had a wonderful group of people. We're averaging, 220 to 250 people in attendance a week.
Wow.
So in 2 years' time, God has really been good, and we're moving, we're growing, and we're reaching out. So it's been a busy, great experience.
That's good. It's good. You've no doubt had the privilege of mentoring and discipling people in your church, and basically, it seems like to me, I hear it over and over again. You raising up champions on the field and off the field, and you've been and continue to be really faithful in that. Can you remember some memories? Like, what are some memories that come to your mind about the tension of trying to raise up, winners on the field and off the field? What have you learned over the years of trying to get better at that?
Oh, man. There's a lot to it. One of which, I just, and probably learned this from Coach Larry Cariker as well. It's an oldest statement in the book, but, if they don't know how much you care about them, they don't care how much you know. And to me, you have to build those relationship bridges. It hasn't changed. I mean, some things change, but some things don't. But the bottom line is, if those people that you come into contact with in your organization, whether they're players or coaches, if they understand and really believe you got their best interest in mind, that builds those bridges that you can be a person of influence. And if they trust you, then you can be, completely honest and open with them, and as long as they believe you have, their best interest in mind, you can influence them. But I think it all starts there. There's a lot of challenges, as you guys know. I mean, the youth of today are carrying possibly the devil in their hand every day with that cell phone. So there's so many influences that, used to we could maybe shelter them from, but now they're right on the front line, and some really tough things that are socially accepted now are so detrimental, in my opinion. So we try to spread the light and preach the light and reinforce the light, and constantly remind them that there is a proper and correct way to walk.
Well, I appreciate that. I always appreciate your solid testimony in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and your faith in Him. Recently, one of the toughest things to talk about is recently you've been facing some really challenging news, overwhelming news with your health, and with the diagnosis of ALS and Lou Gehrig's, and one of the quotes as you've talked about this, because I know you've just received an overwhelming amount of support and friendships, and praise God for that, people who've come around you and continue to encourage you. But one of the things you said is, it's time to practice what I preached to my players for 20 years now, about adversity and now facing it. We want you to know we've been praying for you as soon as we heard that you're facing adversity. And what are you learning from that? How's God teaching you? Yeah, and I know that's a tough question. You can try to summarize that in a few moments.
It's a really tough one. When we were on vacation, June 18th, and it's our annual trek down to Florida, the Trimbles, and this year we even had a couple of boyfriends, so it was very challenging and very expensive for Coach Trimble, but we did have a wonderful time. This was before I got diagnosed. I've had some symptoms in my left arm and hand for over 2 years now that we just haven't been able to figure out. We've had a couple of surgeries and been to a number of great doctors before it all got figured out. But anyway, one of my favorite things to do on vacation, I love to swim way out in the ocean. I love to be right in the middle of the food chain, and so this particular year, I was on my own, but I would go out there and do my morning prayers, and I just love to do it. I love to watch the sun come up and swim with the sharks, But one of my prayers was this year, because I always try to, that's my getaway time, is, God, I want to know you more. I want to be a better servant. I want to get closer to you. And that was just kind of my resounding prayer. I was been completely blessed. I'm very comfortable. You couldn't ask for a better life. Great family, great career, great job, great friends, great school, great community. Mm-hmm. You couldn't write a better chapter. And then, lo and behold, about a week later, I'm sitting in an office in Oklahoma City, and Dr. Beeson says, "You know what? You got ALS." He goes, it's hard to diagnose. He goes, "But I can tell you right now, this is what I do. This is what you have." And it was just, and the first thing that went through my mind, was the first thing, I don't know why, but besides the shock, it's just, man, what in the world is my wife and kids going to do with me? Because I know what this is. I know where you end up, and you end up, not being able to help yourself, and it takes away, a lot of those things. So fast forward to about the week after I got diagnosed, I'm reading one of Charles Swindoll's devos, and it's talking about Elijah in 1 Kings standing in the middle of a dry creek because he had prayed for it not to rain. It didn't rain for 3.5 years. And he talked about, in the devotional, he talked about God's boot camp, that so many people, like Coach Trimble, well, I want a stronger faith, Lord, as long as it doesn't really cost me anything, and I would like to become a better servant, or I'd like to become patient today, if you don't mind. But so many of us want the comforts and the blessings, but without the scars and the calluses. And I for some reason, there's so many verses, whether it's in James or wherever it might be, that you don't develop perseverance in the easy times, and you don't develop faith in the easy times. And so lo and behold, it was like that Mr. Swindle was like writing to me. Wow. And so anyway, this journey has been, it's gut-wrenching. I mean, it is, as a man, I can probably take it. I'm just like Larry would tell you, I can handle myself and all that, but it does put a burden on your heart when you know what it's going to do to your family and your friends. So it's a tough burden. It's been hard for me to shake, but I would also say, like you mentioned, is so many people have been praying and reaching out. My family and I can really tell that. I don't think there's any way I could be walking around, because some of the pain with the mental pain, it's just, it's incomprehensible at times. But yet, for some reason, God has put a pretty good song in my heart every day, and a pretty good prayer in my mind every day, and great people like you all that are sustaining us.
That's great. Well, we know that you're a strong man of faith, and we know that the Holy Spirit inside you is even stronger. And so we're praying that the Holy Spirit will continue to show Himself strong each and every day.
Thank you.
One of the things that you've been, sharing your message and sharing an encouraging word is through your website, trimble.org. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that's not something I came up with on my own.
Yeah.
I would tell you guys, though, that through this last 6 weeks or so, for some reason the Spirit of the Lord has put upon our heart, or my heart, that I'm really hoping that God will be glorified in this journey. You guys have been around long enough to know that it's even hard to comprehend the way God moves. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we don't even know how He works. We just know that He does. And I think this website, they've asked me to blog my thoughts and different things, and I have a lot of thoughts. I'm not great at writing them. I was a math teacher, as you said, so writing wasn't a big thing. But our prayer being God be glorified and all that has created a great deal of opportunities to share, my faith, to hopefully put on display what God can do for you even in the toughest times, so, and I really thank him for that. And there are a lot of good opportunities. So I hope that I can become a little more disciplined in writing. They want me to do it each week. So
Wow.
probably I need to get busy and see how I do, because it takes a while to edit some of my errors. I write in too much okie, Larry, for some reason.
We all know about that, but we look forward to reading more at trimble.org, blogs and all kinds of things that people can find encouragement there. Many years ago, I was in college, and my mom wrote me a letter, and one of the quotes that she wrote on there was that adversity causes some men to break, but others to break records. And the great thing about your life is, by God's grace, you've been breaking records for many years now, and it's our prayer at Rejoice Church that you're going to continue, by God's grace, through faith and work of the Spirit, that you'll continue to break records, both in how you coach on the field and how you, most of all, live off the field. And so we just want to thank you for your time and your effort, but most of all, your life, and how it continues to be a real testimony to all of us.
Well, I appreciate that, guys. It's been a pleasure, talking with you guys, and certainly thank you to your flock up there in Owasso and everywhere for the prayers and all the outreach. It's really made a huge difference in my family and myself.
We are so thankful to have Coach Trimble on the program. He is such an encouragement to us who had the opportunity to sit down with him, but I hope that it's an encouragement to you. Know that no adversity, no pain, no struggle, no temptation is beyond the grace of God. And we're so thankful as Coach Trimble leads that by example, not only for us as adults afar, but also watching him lead young men, lead a football team right on through this. So we are just so blessed to have someone who's so close to our church family, who is leading by example. And so I hope you were encouraged by that today. I hope that this was very encouraging to you. So we'd like to ask you to subscribe to this podcast. If you're a podcast junkie like ourselves here, you can do that. Also go to Facebook. You can like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Rejoice Podcast. You can also find us on Twitter at Rejoice Podcast. And you can also find any episodes you'd like on our church website, rejoicechurch.com. Go to the Watch and Read page. You can find us there at Rejoice Podcast. We are so thankful that you tuned in today. If you'd like to learn more about Coach Trimble's story, don't forget trimble.org. There you can hear more about Coach Trimble's story. We're so thankful you hung out with us today. We hope this is a blessing to you. We'll see you next time on the Rejoice Podcast.